things I learned working with the Indigenous communities. Number one is to listen. Listen to what they're trying to say through their crafts, through their products, and through the stories that they tell. Secondly, it's also about reclaiming heritage. A lot of it is also unlearning, relearning, and understanding again what it is that you want to bring from the past and putting it in the context of the present. With the reclaiming heritage, some stuff that I also understood was a lot about our geography and our agriculture, which brings us to seeing how with agriculture, a lot of their practice is also understanding nature, cycles, seasons, and the environment. When you see how they work with the natural fibers that belong to our country, whether it's indigenous, endemic, or it's agroforestry, you get to see a glimpse of what goes on in their lifestyle and their environment. And a lot of that can give us ideas into how best practice we should do in our everyday lives. Thirdly, it's also about conscious consumption. So it's taking what you need for your daily. It's harvesting at the right time. It's utilizing these produce and using it to make the products. So one thing that I love about working with the Indigenous is you see how resourceful they are with the materials that they have, whether it's materials that they planted or it's materials that they find on the ground or on the environment. One of the first communities I worked with was the Tiboli tribe of Mindanao. Way back in 1999, a story that they shared with me was the bangles that they were creating were from bullet shell casings. And that made me realize that there was this war going on that we weren't aware of. But, through that, they created their traditional products so that they still have something to sell. And for me, these are the stories that I want to be able to share with others to give a glimpse and insight of what goes on with our fellow brothers and sisters around the Philippines. The other lesson I learned was holding hands. There was a time I was also working with the Tausug of Sulu, and this was a time when there was war in their area and we weren't hearing about it in Manila. And I was wondering why it was always so hard to bring the textiles to the city. And they were telling me the stories of what was going on in their provinces. For me, that was also a moment that I was going through things in my life, and hearing their stories also gave me strength into how to go on. They were finding ways just to be able to bring their textiles to the city so that they have their own source of income. They would hide in different tents during the bombings just to be able to continue weaving. The moment the textiles arrived in Manila, we took care of it and created a collection from whatever we could during the time, given the circumstances and the situations that they were also going through. One thing that the weaver told me that time when I was talking to her and crying to her, wondering, how are we gonna do this? How do we continue doing this when it was so hard? She said, "It's okay. Kaya natin to. Holding hands lang. Sama-sama tayo aangat." So that has also been a statement that she shared with me that I've kept up to now. With that, all the stories that have been shared with me, a lot of it goes down to choice. We all have the choice to choose what we want to purchase every day, the people that we want to work with, the people that we want to support. It also gives us a reflection into conscious consumption and knowing that your purchase or your decisions can create these kinds of impacts to communities. Putting it in the industry today, if you see a lot of the problems that we're going through now, whether it's climate change, how do we incorporate more sustainability into our lives, a lot of these questions, the answers we can learn from our Indigenous brothers and sisters. A lot of it is about inclusivity, a lot of it is about listening to what they have to say, because They are the ones who have been taking care of our environment. They are the ones living closest to nature. They understand how the cycles of nature happens. And even they themselves have been telling me that they notice a lot of changes that's going on also in the environment. Hence, like the harvests at different schedules already, which gives you like, which makes you see what's happening also around the world. So bringing it to the context of the global economy, one thing that's beautiful that I've learned from seeing our different indigenous arts from a country that has 7,000 plus islands is that we really all have our own diversity and strengths. Each one has their own patterns, each one has their own motives and meanings. And when you listen and hear about what these motives and meanings are, you understand what the different indigenous communities of all around our islands are trying to tell us. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And when you see that in the context of the world, it shows you what makes us Filipinos different or what makes us stand out. So I remember one time in Assumption, it was after like sem break, and our teacher said, okay, where did everyone come from? And then a lot of my classmates raised their hands that they came from their provinces, they came from other places that they visited. And I was like, oh my gosh, where am I from? And I think that sparked me to want to know about where I came from and my heritage. So I asked my mom and dad, where were you guys born? How come we don't have any province? Like all my classmates raised their hands and I didn't. We were just in Manila the whole time. And that's when I started digging further into, okay, where are my grandparents from? Where are my maternal grandparents from? And so on. And so I guess when I got out of high school and heading into college, that kind of started my journey into wanting to learn about our different indigenous communities. Because I clearly remember telling my mom back then that when she asked me what do you want to do, what are you going to take up for college and all of that, and I said Philippine textiles. But back then there wasn't even really a fashion school. There weren't even all these things that are available now. So I guess this journey was something that I took up on my own, and I was lucky. The first indigenous woman that I met back then was she's a Teboli lady, and she introduced me about the Teboli bell. And one thing that I really loved, because I started asking her where, how do you make this? What is the material? What is it made of? And she shared with me that this is their traditional bells, but the metal that they use for this is from found metal. And that's where I started learning about the different stories of how they would make their traditional products, crafts, and arts. And I think that was the start of my decades, years of just wanting to learn more about our culture, our textiles, our industries, and our indigenous communities. Throughout the years, I was lucky that I got to meet a lot of different communities from all around the Philippines, and with that, a lot of lessons also learned along the way. So one thing that I learned also about all these indigenous arts and crafts is that it's intergenerational, just like our Assumption education, where we have our teachers, our mentors, our classmates, and where we can learn from each other. And what we're doing now, this velada, we're learning from all the generations.